When you interact with a deployed large language model, your prompt rarely travels straight to the neural network. It is usually intercepted by an active middleware layer known as a guardrail. This defensive boundary evaluates inputs and outputs, blocking anything that violates predefined security policies. Attackers attempting to bypass these systems traditionally operate under a convenient assumption. They presume the target will clearly communicate whether their prompt was blocked by the guardrail or rejected by the LLM itself. This diagram illustrates the actual architecture of production AI. It highlights a critical problem for the adversary. Guardrails are explicitly designed to obfuscate their interventions. Notice how the red and green return arrows originate from entirely different layers of the system, the guardrail and the LLM, but arrive back at the attacker looking identical. To execute this camouflage, a guardrail will often return a standard HTTP 200 OK status code, attaching templated text like, "I'm sorry, I can't do that." It perfectly mimics the natural safety refusal of the underlying LLM. Because production systems actively lie about the exact source of a rejection, attackers are left flying blind. They receive a generic failure state, but lack the internal reward signals necessary to adjust their strategy. Bypassing a guardrail is an evasion problem. The attacker must carefully mutate their prompt to exploit specific blind spots in the middleware's training data, slipping past the classification boundary. Bypassing the LLM's own safety alignment requires a different approach. This is a jailbreak problem, where the goal is to construct a narrative that overrides the model's learned behavioral reinforcement. Conflating these two layers incurs a severe operational penalty. If an attacker applies an evasion mutation to a prompt that is actually being caught by the LLM's safety alignment, the attack will fail and resources will be spent running the wrong optimization routine. We can solve this routing problem without internal system access. By applying behavioral monitoring through a standard API, we can systematically force an obfuscated system to reveal its own defensive routing. We do not need internal visibility to map the target. We simply need to tacitly detect the physical, structural leakage the system emits every time an intervention occurs. This methodology flowchart outlines the reconnaissance engine. Phase 1 is response gathering. To establish a behavioral baseline and begin mapping the system, the algorithm requires a payload of only 40 specific prompts, divided strictly between a benign control set and malicious test cases. The malicious payload is categorized to isolate specific attack vectors. The prompts test the system's response to 3 distinct types of content: prompt injections, jailbreaks, and toxicity. Phase 2 is feature extraction. Operating entirely black box, the algorithm strictly constrains its observations to the data returned via the standard API interface. It captures HTTP, lexical, and timing metrics. On the HTTP layer, the system monitors for leaked network features. It logs any deviations from a standard 200 status code, tracks subtle shifts in the response body schema, and flags injected security headers that middleware occasionally appends to a blocked packet. On the lexical layer, the algorithm measures the rigid prevalence of the return text. Organic LLM generation naturally varies in its phrasing. If the target repeatedly returns the exact same string of canned text across multiple distinct prompts, it signals a hard-coded middleware block. Finally, the system extracts timing features to detect physical short circuits. When a guardrail intercepts a prompt, it bypasses the LLM entirely. Skipping text generation sharply reduces the total elapsed time of the request, but artificially inflates the estimated time per token ratio. Even when a middleware layer perfectly mimics the text output of an LLM, its physical intervention leaves a measurable structural footprint in the metadata. Phase 3 is behavioral monitoring. To confirm a guardrail is active, the methodology calculates the exact statistical divergence between the benign baseline responses and the malicious test cases. The algorithm applies a Kolmogorov-Smirnov test to the continuous data. By measuring the maximum vertical distance between the distribution curves, it securely tracks minute timing deviations that indicate a short-circuited request. For categorical data, it utilizes Fisher's exact tests. This mathematically verifies the distinct shifts occurring in the HTTP headers and lexical patterns. Because the system evaluates multiple features simultaneously, it runs a Benjamini-Hochberg false discovery rate correction. This tightens the confidence intervals across the board to strictly prevent false positives. By running these statistical tests, transient network anomalies and server lag are filtered out entirely. What remains are mathematically verified, high-confidence signals of guardrail intervention. The results of this channel analysis reveal that the HTTP and lexical features provide statistically significant separation, with Q values consistently falling below 0.001. Conversely, the analysis identifies the timing channel as a noisy supplementary signal. It detects deviations, but it cannot be used in isolation to confirm a block. This happens due to a natural control baseline anomaly. When tested on a completely unshielded LLM, a native safety refusal will generate fewer tokens than a standard comprehensive answer. This natively skews the latency and creates a false timing signal, even when no guardrail is present. Relying on timing alone creates a dangerous false positive. True reconnaissance requires the rigid, categorical proof found in the HTTP and lexical metadata to confirm middleware presence. Phase 4 transitions the algorithm from simply detecting presence to mapping the guardrail's internal logic. By isolating exactly which malicious prompt sets triggered the high-confidence alerts, the system identifies the categories the guardrail is explicitly trained to block. This capability matrix displays the results. Checkmarks and Xmarks denote which systems successfully blocked prompt injections, jailbreaks, or toxicity, and which let payloads slip through. We cross-reference these empirical triggers against stated documentation, validating the true defensive coverage and exposing classification failures. With a payload of exactly 40 prompts, an attacker moves from complete black box blindness to possessing a comprehensive map of the system's exact defensive capabilities and operational blind spots. The methodology culminates in collapsing these statistical signals into a single deterministic fingerprint. As this chart maps, the data demonstrates 100% accuracy for identifying guardrails and an average 98% accuracy in separating a middleware block from an LLM rejection across 162 configurations. This grants the attacker a definitive operational advantage. With this fingerprint applied, an automated attack engine can instantly interpret a failed prompt, confidently routing it to either an evasion mutator for the guardrail or a jailbreak optimizer for the LLM. By abandoning brittle text matching and weaponizing the system's own behavioral divergence, red teamers and adversaries can strip away the API obfuscation, protecting production AI.